Hello YouTube, and welcome to a tour of beautiful downtown Huntington, West Virginia. There is another video on YouTube based on downtown, but that one's not very informative, and no disrespect to the gentleman who filmed that one, but this is going to be a little bit more informative and a little bit more up to speed. So this is where we start at Veterans Memorial Boulevard, aka the entrance to the old Cruise Avenue. We're going to be heading down that way shortly, and I will fill you on information about Huntington as we go along. At the time of this recording, the current mayor of Huntington, West Virginia is Mayor Steve Williams. There are plenty of mixed reviews on him. I have no opinion of him myself. I don't know the man, but I do know that he's been the mayor during the most of the epidemic that has taken most media attention for the area. Even a special included in the BBC, which for around here is pretty impressive. As you can see here, this is a Morgan Stanley Institute and People's Bank. Years before it became known as People's Bank and Morgan Stanley Investments, this was, as a lot of kids in music knew it, as the Pied Piper, a place where you could get instruments, repairs for instruments, instrument rentals, so forth and so on. So that's changed within the last 20 years. Now here we are with the heart of our video. This is what's going to be known as the old Cruise Avenue. For a lot of years, up into the early 2000s, I believe construction started around 2004. Kids would come down here on weekends, Fridays and Saturdays mostly, hang out. This was a completely vacant lot. We're going to walk around Pullman Square and give you what I can remember of Cruise Avenue. But on the corner here where you see this building here in front of me, it is now a credit union or a community trust bank. For what stood there before they all shut down with the Chi-Chi's restaurant. It's always a very hot place to be, especially homecomings and proms. So with that being said, come on kid, let's get across the street and start doing a tour of the old Cruise Avenue. So as you can see, there's a parking garage. And there for a few years was a Nintelos cellular service branch. Of course, Sprint bought them out. So a little history on Pullman Square. During the summer, usually on Thursday evenings, they have the Pullman Summer Days, I believe it's called. Right here in this square in front of me, there's usually a band that performs in this little area here. Concerts are free and just come down, help support local businesses and things of that nature. And before all this was here, this was all just a big vacant lot. As you can see here now, this is the place to promote and advertise for car sales and here's some for you Star Wars fans. Alright, we're going to head up top here and give you a brief history of a few things that have come and gone. As you can see, the escalator is broken, so you'll be healthier choice of taking the steps. So welcome to Marquee Cinemas, the only theater left downtown. Now, over here at Quicksilver, this used to be a Max and Irma's. They changed it into more of a retro style gaming facility, mostly for adults. So it's nice that they repurposed the restaurant that gave their employees no notice and just packed up and left. So this is part of Pullman Square. Let's head back down. Not yet. So we'll continue on once we get back down. So we're going to continue on with our stroll through Pullman Square. Oh, that food smells delicious, doesn't it? So over here used to be a clothing store, but now it's a nail salon. It's M&M Nails and Spa. There's a GameStop on the corner. Cold Stone Creamery. A lot has changed since I was a teenager here. And where you see Black Sheep, that used to be an Uno's Pizzeria. Alright. So this back here, going towards, let's slow down a little bit. Sorry for the out of focus shot. There we go, that's better. So this back here was mainly where all us kids used to gather and have fun, cut up. There was the Vapors Car Club, and then a friend of mine, his name is Jeff, he started the Outsiders. Well, before the Outsiders, it was the Mystic Vapors Car Club. So this is where we used to just get together and just cut up, have fun. You know, the car clubs would get into races and just different things of that nature that, you know, teenagers being stupid. But one of the main rules that both sides had for anybody potentially becoming a member of their group is there was no drinking and driving. If you were caught, you paid a price. And that was something that was strictly enforced. And to add a side note, actually, in a couple of my books, I actually mentioned Cruise Avenue and what it was like, and even the strip where we used to race, which is this strip right here. This is the road here that we showed you at the beginning of the video, Veterans Memorial Boulevard. We used to race from the lights down there to right about down this way. Now, you can't see it from the trees from here, but we're going to go by it. It's the former Huntington Civic Arena, formerly the Big Sandy Superstore Arena, and now the Mountain Health Arena. And here we are with Mountain Health Arena. Over here, as you can see, this nice little art sculpture. There used to be a huge fountain there. I can't remember exactly what year it was when they took it out, but I remember it up until I was a teenager. And then this, like I said, this used to be the Huntington Civic Arena, then it was Big Sandy Superstore Arena, now it's Mountain Health Arena. Acts such as Kid Rock, Jeff Dunham, Five Finger Death Punch, and others have performed here. So also, this is where Rebels and Readers has also held a few events. For those who don't know about Rebels and Readers, it is an independent author event where authors from all over the world have attended along with readers, and sadly they have decided to relocate from Huntington to Hershey, Pennsylvania, so all the best of luck to them. Now, turning our attention here, this is Delta Hotels by Marriott, formerly a Holiday Inn Express when it first opened for several years. I actually had a professor who used to be a shift manager there, and don't know exactly when it turned into Delta Hotels. It was just a couple years ago, so that is something that has changed. Off in the distance, we're going to walk that way, is I will give you the information about a hotel I used to personally work at. I was actually one of the managers there for a department in the former Pullman Plaza, but before it became Pullman Plaza Hotel, it was... Never know what you're going to hear Never going to know what you hear downtown. There used to be a lot more racing than that, but as you can see, not exactly smart, and the city has redesigned its streets. But back to the history for the Pullman Plaza. Before it was its own independent entity, it was a Radisson for several years. They lost their license, from what I remember being told, from refusing to renovate and keep up with the time. So they lost their branding license, and they did close for a couple of years, and then the new owners came in and started as an independent hotel known as Pullman Plaza. It had its ups and downs. I worked there while I was in college, so it's a good way to get experience in what I was going to school for. And I mean, I'll be honest, I've worked with some of the greatest people I've worked with, and I've worked with people from all over the globe. And actually, I had a few employees that I worked with that worked for me. People have always worked with me that actually came here, became citizens from Kenya, Africa. So a lot of them came here to finish their degrees or get their master's degrees from Marshall University. And speaking of Marshall, there is the Marshall Hall of Fame Cafe. So we'll continue our little stroll through downtown. And at the end of this corridor here, there was a spot up until about 10 years ago for those who like to skateboard and rollerblade and such, that they took it out. And I'll try to zoom out. It's way down there where you see the other red light. So they took it out, and since then the kids haven't had anything really to do downtown. So in my opinion, that was a mistake, taking that out. It gave kids something to do and somewhere to be. And this is the former Five Guys. It looks like there's a new tenant coming in, Rapid Fire Pizza. So that's it's pretty interesting. Finally someone making the use of the space. So as you can see, we still have several small businesses here in the area. I'll slow my walking so that way it's a little bit easier on your eyes. Yeah. So a little interesting tidbit right here where you see the sign where it says Marshall University. Back when it was Marshall Community Technical College, now known as Mount West Community Technical College, this right here used to be where the part of the Culinary Arts Institute was. So I've known a lot of people who came through that, and a lot of talented people going through that program. It's one of the few accredited programs and one of the most profitable programs on the entire East Coast. And this is the former Pullman Plaza Hotel, now known as the Doubletree by Hilton. It is quite impressive. The building, actually, from what I've understood from the former general manager when I worked there, is that the building was built from the sky down, is held together by structural cables rather than traditional foundation. So it's Japanese design. And I've always found that to be pretty impressive about that. On the end here where you see the, I guess you call it like a rustic red stripe with the gray, there for a few years, that was the federal building while they were under renovation. So that was interesting, always having to go in there when we needed supplies and things of that nature for banquets. But this, like I said, this is downtown. There's still a lot of small businesses, a lot of personal experiences from down here. Brief history. When my grandparents moved here from Logan and Lincoln counties after the Korean War, my grandparents used to tell us stories that it was so packed downtown that you can see is how wide these sidewalks and such are. that you couldn't even, on Saturdays, you could not even walk on the sidewalks. It was so packed. At the height of it all, I believe up through the 70s, Huntington had well over 50,000 people. Sadly, it is under that now. I think it's closer to 40,000. And a lot of the reason is that, you know, a lot of things have changed. You know, like I said, we are still really in a drug epidemic, as well as the COVID-19 epidemic at the time of this recording. There's, you know, the good old boy system of this city, this whole area has really held this town back. It's really held it down. You know, the user fee, which I think is complete bullshit. You know, everybody who works in the city has to pay a user fee, which is supposed to go to be funding the roads and everything else. But if I were to take you down the streets of this city, you would see that these streets are in desperate need of repair and repavement. You know, loss of other small businesses, and you know, industry's not keeping up with the times. This used to be the very bottom of the old Rust Belt system from Pittsburgh. You know, sadly, everybody who grew up in Appalachia knows that, you know, once they started shipping these jobs off to China, you know, that really put a hurt on areas like this. And not just Huntington, but it's connecting sister cities of Akron, Canton, and different places like that. So, I mean, a lot of, you know, if you have a small business and you're successful, you're doing really well. You know, we do have a lot of chains around here, but they don't pay worth anything. Anybody knows that. There's a few manufacturing companies left, and sadly, you know, it's really hurt the area. The education for the longest time, which it's improved some, but the education for the most part has been horrible around here. You know, I think West Virginia as a whole does have a pretty high percentage of high school graduates as compared to the national average. But as far as college education, keeping college graduates here, bringing in better performing careers, not just dead-end jobs, that's really hurt the city in a very big way. It has started to rebound a little bit. Amazon's here, there's Alcon, Special Metals, also known as Inco Alloy, West Virginia Metals. You know, there used to be so much more around here. So, you know, if you're looking to move to Huntington, you might want to do your research on where you want to work, or if you're going to start up a business, but make sure you find a good location to start a business, because around here, location truly is key. I've seen so many small businesses come and go just in, you know, my time as being an adult. I don't want to see anybody fail or anybody fall flat on their ass because of a bad location. So that is part of the history I have for downtown. Here shortly, I'm going to share some of the history and different things from Marshall University, so stay tuned. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and sorry for the cut out there. As you can see now, we are on the campus of Marshall University. It was founded for John Marshall. Sorry, I'm still a little bit of an, I'm still very much an amateur when it comes to this. I'm trying to keep this as steady as I can, so my apologies. John Marshall, Chief Justice of the United States, 1801 to 1835. So, the building, I know it's kind of hard to see with the trees behind. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But the building there is Old Main. And this is the John Deaver Drinko Library. And going to be cutting over this way. We're going to be going to something that means something very much to anyone and everyone who has grown up here in Huntington. We are approaching the Marshall University Student Center, but that's not what we have to show you. What we have to show you is actually out back here of the Student Center. And this is something that, like I said, is very near and dear. You know, a lot of sports teams, when they come to play Marshall here at home, whether it be at, we call it the Jones C. Edwards Stadium, or over at the Henderson Center, you know, this is something that they like to come visit, pay their respects, and anything like that. So with that being said, this here is the Memorial Student Fountain. for the memorial fountain for the football player, for the entire 1970 Marshall football team that was lost in a plane crash after coming home from playing East Carolina in November 1970. There's actually a movie that has taken place that was filmed mostly here called We Are Marshall, starring Matthew McConaughey, Matthew Fox, and Kimberly Williams Paisley, as well as a few other notable actors and actresses from that movie. Anthony Mackie also starred in that movie. But this is something that I definitely wanted to get in on this video and share with everybody. And I'm actually going to take you over to a scene, and show you where a very important, if I could talk today, pardon me, a very important scene was for the movie. You know, it was a very big deal when Matthew McConaughey and Matthew Fox signed on, but I can actually, if you have time, I can show you around the area where they filmed the first scene of the movie. But there is a scene in the movie where a Board of Governors meeting is being held, and there were hundreds of students who gathered to cheer and chant to keep the football program alive when they wanted to kill it after the crash. Because Marshall at that time was still a very small school. And it is this little area right here. Anthony Mackie and them were in that building, I do believe, right there from what I can remember, when he pointed out and said, "I have nothing to say, but they do." You know, he stood right there, and this whole area was filled with students, people from the community, and everything else chanting, "We are Marshall." For anybody who grew up here, or anybody who stopped to see these scenes being filmed, it was truly something else. So I've always thought that was something that was pretty impressive. I'm trying to pan this slowly, but over in that vicinity over there towards the Campus Christian Center was where the first scene was filmed. It was actually filmed in the afternoon. They put trash bags over the windows to give it the illusion of night, and that is where Matthew Fox and Matthew McConaughey's characters came together to talk about, you know, we may not win this year, we may not win next year, we may not even win 10 years from now. But the important thing is we keep the legacy alive. And that scene was filmed over that way, in the middle of the day. Very important scene. And since then, Marshall has had its good years, but mostly it's had a lot of its bad years. But, you know, it is something to see the university have battled back from something like that to keep its program alive and continue to thrive. Marshall in the 90s won 2 national championships in what was known then as Division I AA, now known as FCS, Football Championship Subdivision. And, you know, they've won countless MAC titles. They've beaten nationally ranked teams. They've gone on from the Mid-American Conference to Conference USA, and hopefully one day we will rejoin most of our old rivals in the AAC, also known as the American Athletic Conference. So with that being said, I'm going to get one more shot of the fountain, and then we're going to wrap this video up. And thank you to anybody and everybody for taking time to watch this video. Please leave a like in the comments, subscribe down below, and hit that notification bell so you can keep up with my son and I as we get back to our podcast. And of course, pretty soon there's going to be video podcasts. So thank you to everybody. Please leave a kind comment down below on anything you would like to see us film here around the area. Barbersville, Guyandotte, Ironton, Chesapeake, or anywhere else you would like us to go. Until then, this is Ace and J Factor saying, see you next time.